So let's talk about gear and health management as you make your way through the quest. So I had just left the gate, making my way through the Badlands, and I arrive at the first settlement. And it's not much of a settlement. It's just kind of a dirt road, huts and some broken up houses on the left and the right, few farmers. But I'm starting the quest. I've got full health, I've got 10 food, and I've got 10 gold, and I am ready to shop. So going in there and spending my gold, how much do you buy early on and how much do you save? This is not only like a game book question, but this is also like a classic RPG type question. How much in the beginning can you level up? Do you spend all of your gold in the beginning to get that gear, knowing that as you quest at a certain point, based on the decisions you make, you're going to gain more gold, but you're also going to gain more gear. And of course, the gear depends much on the game book. Some books are a little bit lighter on gear, and some books actually, handle it out almost like a Diablo-esque type game where you're constantly getting gear. I might have that awareness. I might not have that awareness if I'm playing through the book for the first time. But generally speaking, we talk about this idea of trying to control the random in the game book. There's two things going on. The first is the actual text itself. I'm reading this text, and of course, yes, I'm immersing myself into it. I am visualizing it in my mind, and I'm trying the best I can. Sometimes I do it better than others. I'm trying to pick up on cues or narrative or keywords based on the series of the book. Different authors naturally will repeat different things to convey, hey, maybe there's combat coming up, or maybe there's a potential interaction, or maybe there's going to be a branch in the storyline. You can go right or left, so to speak. I'm trying to pick up what is going on. What can I possibly expect to encounter? And sometimes you flip the page and literally combat begins and you're like, I had no idea what this was going on. That is a level of random. You have control of the choices you make, but are you aware of what's coming? And then we see the choices, primarily combat, whether it's a D6 or a D10, and maybe you're flipping through the pages to roll the dice or rolling physical dice. But also we see in some books kind of a soft test of skills where you need to pass or you need to do something. And it might be, of course, modified by character class, and that will open up new paths in the adventure. It might give you some gear. You might take some damage. That's the random in that I can control that somewhat based on choices. I can control that based on the gear that I have. If I'm fighting combat and doing damage, and every time I hit, I do 2 points of damage, but if I have a long sword, I do an extra point of damage, right? That stuff I can control. Can't necessarily control the dice. I can try to influence them by getting bonuses or maybe rerolls or gear, but I cannot control the dice. So within that, at the start of the quest, going back to this example, my first chance to shop, I tend to spend most of my gold on the gear that I can, because I know I'm going to get better gear. But since I can only modify the dice, I don't want to hold back on gear or buying stuff and bank or kind of gamble on, hey, the first couple of encounters will be rough, but I should be able to get through them because I've got good health. That might put me out of health or stamina or life points, whatever it's going to be, deficit. And now gear that I get or opportunities to heal with my life, I got to spend resources doing that. I'd rather keep that topped off going into mid-game, and I'd like to get as much gear as I can early on to influence my dice, even if it's not always optimal. Also, what we see in terms of health and gold and maybe provisions or food versus gear, I'm trying to convert stuff that is variable into some sort of permanence. What do I mean by that? Okay, if I have a healing potion, I can purchase a healing potion or a longsword, regular longsword. We're not even talking magical. The healing potion is great because it's going to restore 2 stamina. And maybe I've got 10 to start. I haven't leveled up yet. I don't want to take a lot of damage, or if I save that potion, I can heal. But if I use that potion, it's then gone, whether it costs 3 gold or I acquired it as a quest reward. And again, I'm not saying it's not important, but that is a one-time or X-use type item, and then it's done. Where that longsword, if it's adding +1 damage every time I swing it, that's going to be consistent. I can use that sword over and over and over and over again. And yes, I could get captured and I could lose my gear, but that could happen independent of that. I try to go for the permanent modifiers before I go for the modifiers that you use once and they're done. I'd rather have that permanency. Second to that would be just the nature of the game books. I mean, we're there to fight. We're there to have encounters. We're there for heroic glory. Combat, whether the combat system is somewhat simplified or a lot more complex, combat is an important part of these books. There is no glory unless there's combat. So I would also want to spend my gold primarily first. If there's an item like, let's see, I can buy this sword, I can buy this skull cap, I can buy some giant teeth, and I can buy this large crystal emerald. Like the first on my list is going to be that longsword because, or gear that is going to affect combat. If we're talking about spell components, I will tend to try and focus on combat-based spell components simply because that, I don't want to say that's the main way that I'm going to die in the game and have to reboot, but most game books, you die based on combat. So I want to jack that up. I want to jack my combat numbers up and then move from there. So strategies to consider. There are definitive strategies, core strategies running through all of these game books just based on the narrative of how they operate. This idea of we have a random with the dice and how we fight. I can't control that, but I can influence it. And part of that influence for the better for me happens through gear, gold, and provisions.